Hello all. Where would you like to ride today? The countryside? How about the city? Maybe a mountain forest? Or a sandy beach? No matter how far away, or in our own backyard, I hope you'll ride along. Hello all, and welcome back to On the Road with Vincent. Now, as I said in my last video, that I've pretty much taken my last road trip of the year. So here I am, walking along a road, kind of thinking back on this past year. Obviously, the theme this year has been, what are we missing? And, after looking back on such a busy year, I really have to stop and think about the little things I've been missing along the way. Now, if you've been following the channel this year, you'll know that earlier in the year, me and my wife actually moved, so a lot closer to the band, back almost where I grew up, and it's still been a very busy year. I started back working at a place I'd left a few years ago, and with work, the band schedule, moving, really didn't have time to just sit and enjoy my time at home. Taken a few road trips this year, not really a whole lot. Been spending a lot more of my off time at the house, but even then, I was so tired, I really couldn't do anything. So I have taken a couple months off from work to try to get a few things squared away. And really the first thing I set out to do was get my house in order. Really get everything cleaned up, stuff put away, so I could begin enjoying my new house. If you'll remember, I announced over a year ago about a new show starting. Well, obviously that show has not yet aired, the show entitled Rest Stop, but my new studio is well underway, almost done. I've just got some, junk to put away that's in the floor, but it's pretty much ready to go. And obviously I've been editing my videos all year anyways. But what else have we been missing? All the time with the band being in the studio or playing shows, I've not really had time to, retrace my footsteps, as we talked about last year, and come down to the pond or to the cabin, where so many of the early days of the band were spent. So while we're not really taking any trip on this episode, I would like to showcase a few things, kind of going back to the roots of this channel and the roots of this show. The first few episodes of On the Road with Vincent were kind of just focused on the band, places we got started and what was really going on in the early days. So as we prepare to play our first show in the town of Martinsville, Virginia, which is pretty much the closest thing to a hometown show that we'll probably ever have, at least the closest thing so far. I just thought, we'd look back on those early days again and just, spend some time around home. Not really going too far, no big fancy road trip, just spending some time around my home here in Patrick County and going into Henry County and Martinsville, Virginia. So just sit back and enjoy the ride or the walk here on this episode of On the Road with Vincent. So a location that we're no stranger to here on the channel, the old cabin. Really just in the woods from my house now, so I can really walk down here anytime that I please now. And that really is a good thing, because not that I was living that far away up before this year, but it wasn't quite as convenient if I just wanted to take a walk through the woods down here to the cabin, or of course see probably my oldest friend, Mr. D Kendrixx.
What's up, guys?
It's been just over 6 years now that Stephen auditioned for the band, and we're just now getting to play our hometown show, so to say. You know, we've played Galax, we've played Hillsville, Madison, which are still fairly close, but being Martinsville, that's where, you know, a lot of the people we went to school with, that's where they go. That's the town they know and they stay. So what can you say about this upcoming show?
Do I expect a lot of people I went to school with to be there? Absolutely not. I'm glad to have gained strangers as fans over the years, actually make an attempt to come to shows, other than my friends who say, like, yeah, they like the band, they've never actually been to a show. But growing up, you know, Goodwill being 15, 16 years old, and we always played in here, I never would have dreamed that we would have made it as far as to like Cincinnati, or even be the band that we are, even though there have been setbacks. But for me, I feel accomplished in this band in a lot of ways, because I never would have dreamed like I would actually make it out of here, out of these four walls, and even playing as close as Martinsville in a couple weeks. Ah! I'll try it again. I want to kick it over. Yeah, scrap that. Oh, the bark in my shoe.
Take two from Matt Jackson's super kick.
Oh! All right, one more. Thing's pretty sturdy for real.
Take three.
Oh! Close.
Oh well.
At least I knocked the bark off of it.
So you may remember back to the season premiere earlier this year that we're riding along US 52 business here in Mount Airy, North Carolina. And, you know, as busy as I've been this year, I had to take the summer off from something, you know, I love to do and I've been doing now for quite some time. But thankfully, now that I'm taking time for myself, I can return back here to Mount Airy Lanes, place that we've not visited on the channel since the very first season. But this is, of course, the place that you can find Marshall Lawless and I for about every week for the last 10 years. What do you really expect of this show? What do you want to make of this?
Honestly, the crowd itself will probably be our regulars, with maybe a handful of people that we went to school with. I feel like a lot of the people, it's mostly fluff when they talk about coming to a show, but now it's time to prove, all right, do you really want to come to a show, or do you want to say you're coming to the show? So this is what I'm excited about, and I'm excited about it being a Christmas show too. We're going to play some Christmas covers, some of our favorites to do actually, and you know, honestly, I'm pretty ecstatic for this because it's a new town we haven't really played, even though as local as we are, we have yet to play in this town. So I'm looking forward to seeing what type of crowd we end up with. But I know no matter what crowd it is, we're going to put on a show.
just like that, it's already the day of the show. Now, before we get on the road, just wanted to show you here what I have been working on this year. This is the new studio space. Now, I still have a little bit of odds and ends junk here I need to find its place for. Some posters over there I didn't quite have room for. Probably going to be gifting some of those this year. But here it is. This will be the backdrop for Rest Stop, the show I've been teasing for over a year now. It was supposed to come out last year, or earlier this year, I should say, and never quite happened yet. But as you can see, we're ready to go for that. And down below my camera there is all my lighting equipment. I just need to find a place to put up, and we'll be ready to go for all in-studio shows from here on. That might include the continuation of Midnight Movie Reviews, and Stephen and I have already filmed an episode of the Smoking Hour here. As you can see, there's still our remnants of that. But I think it's about time to get on the road and get ready for a hometown show. So had to stop down at D's for a second, but we are now on our way to the show. Might stop a couple places before we get there. It is still about another 5 hours until showtime, so just sit back and enjoy part of the ride here to Martinsville, Virginia. Not really a whole lot to see along the way, but you know, might just stop at a few places to reminisce or reflect. See you soon. So now, riding through the grand metropolis, that is Stuart, Virginia. You know, I've featured this town a few times on the channel, and quite extensively in one of the first few episodes of On the Road with Vincent, where I pointed out this white building here in front of us. Now, you look up on the second floor, on the right, those two windows. If you were watching my channel back then, you'll know that that is where Midnite Massacre was actually born. That is where many of the early songs were written, where the idea was proposed to me to join the band, and, you know, it's a lot that happened in that apartment that was once lived in by our own Raven Shadow. If walls could talk, I don't think I'd want to even remember half the stories that place would hold. But you know, it really has got me thinking, you know, back to those very humble beginnings when the band was first unofficially founded way back in 2013, almost 10 years ago now. And just, you know, like Dee and I were talking about, you know, our first band starting back in 2009, and who would have known it would have taken this long to just play a somewhat local hometown show. At this point, we've played all over North Carolina, you know, as far away as Cincinnati, but this is truly the closest I believe we have played to our home at the cabin in Claudeville, or definitely to where the band was founded here in Stuart. So of course, as we've been saying, while it would be very nice to see a lot of the people from high school, or you know, just the people that we used to hang out with all those years ago here in Stuart or anywhere in Patrick County, I guess we'll just have to wait and see, you know, who really wanted to support us back then, or you know, who just wants to say that they knew us then now. But we're going to keep on riding here on US 58, and we'll make our way into Martinsville here shortly. So, just got done having a little late lunch, early supper. Still plenty of time till the show. So, let's just ride around Martinsville for a little bit, see what's going on in town today. Now, I know you can't really see it on the left here, but a little interesting fact, there's a little store called Stafford's Music. Been there for years. I don't really know how long it has. Used to be one in Stuart too. That one didn't really last long. But this one here in Martinsville is actually where my first guitar came from. So even though I've, you know, not been in that store in quite a few years now, actually, I really have to, you know, give it some thanks, because that store is partially to thank for me getting into music. Now, you might have seen my episode here in Martinsville from a couple years ago, right at this time, just going through a bunch of different towns at Christmas time. And I talked about here uptown how, you know, we never really shopped or anything up here. We would always just kind of ride through here about Christmas time. But just a few months ago, I actually got out and, you know, explored the uptown area. You know, hadn't really done that in a long time. But there's actually a decent little bit of stuff going on uptown now. There's a nice little arcade up here. My nephew had a birthday party there, and yeah, that was pretty cool. But there's still a few little shops here and there. So while I've never really done a lot of shopping uptown Martinsville, you know, maybe this is a place I ought to start checking out some of these local businesses. Now, a place that we did frequent, though, many years ago, is here at what was once the Liberty Fair Mall. The mall's been closed for probably right about 10 years now or so. I really don't remember the exact year. And they pretty much just opened it up into a strip mall. So as you can see, there is a good bit of stores here on the strip, but it's not quite the mall I remember from my youth. Now, the only store that's really just how it was when the mall was open is Belk here. You know, it was always on this end, and if you walk around in there, you can actually still see the old entrance to the mall. But let's just take a quick little look at the back side of things here, see if there's anything still lingering from the mall's past. So as you can see, this side of the mall really hasn't changed at all. They've actually got this entrance to Belk here blocked off. Now, a lot of it was knocked out here on the center, but this building here in front of us was the old Sears. Now, obviously, there's not really any Sears left anywhere, maybe one or two, but this was the one we actually visited the most. While the building still stands, there's really no remnant that a Sears was ever even here. But we're going to get back on the road here and go ahead and make our way to the venue and start making our preparations for the show. So if I were to really ask the question of what are you missing if you just drive past Martinsville, well, I honestly can't say too much. You know, if you're from the area, then you know, but you know, if you're not from this area, I'll say this used to be a really nice town to go to. There was a lot of industry here, a lot of business, really nice places to go shopping. The mall was booming, but now I honestly feel like a lot of this town is struggling to hang on. Even the strip here has changed drastically since I was a kid. But that's about all I can say for the quote-unquote city of Martinsville, Virginia. And now, we can finally say that Midnite Massacre has hit the big times, as tonight we will be playing at Hollywood Cinemas in Martinsville, Virginia. So, Stephen, obviously the show probably doesn't have the same impact on you as it does on us because you are the outsider. How does it feel, though, playing what could be considered our hometown show, you being non-local?
Well, for me, if anything, it adds a little bit more pressure because these people know you guys. They know that what they expect of you, and they're kind of biased towards you. Me being the outsider, no one knows me, so they're kind of trying to see if I belong, and that puts pressure on me to give the best performance I can to kind of show them that I'm part of this show too.
So, of course, now with Raven here, was going by your apartment earlier talking about how it's been almost 10 years since the idea for Midnite Massacre was even conceived there, and how most of the early songs were written there. What does this show mean to you?
This show means a lot to me, just because it's crazy to think that it's almost been 10 years since we started, coming up with these songs and, just deciding we wanted to be a band and all the things we've done along the way. And to think we've never played this close to home and now we finally are, it just, I don't know, it feels special to me. It's nice to not have to drive that far, honestly. But I'm seeing some familiar faces here. I mean, people that typically come to our shows, in the Greensboro, Winston areas and stuff, they came out for this. It's not necessarily a hometown show. I mean, this isn't, Stuart or Patrick County. It's Martinsville, but still, like I said, closest to home that we've ever played. And it's just cool to see people here, people we know, people that came a long way for it. And I mean, it looks awesome in there. It sounds good. There's a crowd. Every seat was full when I first showed up and went in there so far. So yeah, I just want it to be fun, and I want people that are taking this opportunity that haven't seen us play live before, which there are a few people here in that situation. I just hope they dig us, and I hope they see what they've been missing out on, and hopefully want to come see more of our shows.
Expect the first when the bell tolls one.
keep your expectations low and your hopes high. That's typically my motto with any show in a new venue. And tonight, I think that truly paid off. Though we started out with a few technical hiccups in the beginning, that was quite possibly show of the year. Made a lot of new fans, a lot of people finally got to see us who'd been wanting to for a while. And you know, as D and I talked earlier in the video about who would show up, nobody that we graduated with or went to school with actually showed up. It was majorly our regular fan base. The fans we've made just over the last few years. People coming all the way up from Greensboro to see us, and well farther. We had fans from West Virginia, South Carolina, I believe Tennessee even, coming to the little town of Martinsville to see our hometown show. And for the first time, somebody that I work with came to a show. Not counting, of course, someone you may recognize from other videos, Michael Coleman. He was already at our shows before I worked with him at one point. But yeah, this was the first time that somebody I work with, listened to the band and decided they wanted to come see us. And, it was a few people from work, and they brought quite a few people in. So, yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised by that. I can't tell them how much I appreciate them coming out. And, like I said, possibly show of the year. I really enjoyed this tonight. So as this year comes to a close, I truly can't think of any better way that I'd like to wrap up this year than with that show. But it is now time to make my way back home and enjoy this last week before Christmas. Thankfully, I don't have too far to ride tonight, versus sometimes upwards 2 or 3 hour drive home. So I'm just going to take it easy, listen to some music on the ride back, and reflect on what all I truly have been missing up to this year. So as busy of a year as this has been, one thing that I am glad I got to take the time to do with this time off is to decorate my house once again for Christmas. A tradition that I always held while I was living at home, but for the last few years was not able to continue. Now being in my own place, it's nice to be able to decorate just as I did for all those years. Now my parents are already off for the night, but had it been a few hours earlier, this whole stretch would have been covered in lights. But I think that'll about do it for this episode and this season of On the Road with Vincent. I hope you've enjoyed riding along this year as we explore some of the places that we've been missing. And maybe you'll remember while you're on road trips or going about life in general to not forget to just take the little extra time to enjoy the little things. Be it taking the back roads, seeing the little towns, or just enjoying day-to-day life in general and living in the now. I hope that you'll all continue to join me in the next year to come. Next year, thinking about hitting up a few locations that have really been calling to me, either recently or throughout my entire life. So again, thank you for joining me on this episode and this season of On the Road with Vincent. I hope that you'll continue to follow me and ride along all next year. So with that, I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the spring.